to have our first all-female panel. I'll be the honorary dude today. So I've got Rita, Kimberly, and Robin, all frothing mad river SUP paddlers from Western Canada here joining me. So I'm going to slide them into the screen here. And as I do, I just want to let you know that this is kind of a test. We're going to try something new. So this is for those of you watching at home. You can treat this. It's 3 o'clock, which I think is now the new 5 o'clock as far as time to start drinking. So this can be used as a drinking game. So if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact or Facebook after the fact, sit down, get comfortable. Every time that the girls use a variation or a derivative of the word stoke or stoked or anything along those lines, you need to have a drink. Pace yourself, because I think there's going to be a lot. So just take it easy. And I think there's going to be a lot of laughs here. So thank you, ladies, for joining me. I'm really excited to have you all here, and I'm excited to see what tangent this goes off on. So I'm going to shut up here pretty quick, but I want to just sort of frame this a little bit. So we're sort of continuing our theme of last week from the discussion I had with Mike Harvey from Badfish, and we're sort of kind of carrying on along the lines of the river SUP community and the growth of it here in Western Canada, and how these ladies are involved in that, both here in Calgary and in BC, up in Prince George and everything as well. So we'll just start off here. We'll start in the top right corner. We'll start with Kimberly up here. So Kim, if you want to just let everyone know where you're at right now and what's going on in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, so I'm up north here in Prince George, British Columbia. If you look at a map, I'm just about dead center in the province. And our rivers are definitely in full flood right now. They're still coming up, a lot of them. And our lakes are iced in the middle and starting to loosen up on the edges. But some of our bigger runs, like access to the Nechako, as well as a bit of the Fraser, is starting to, I was out paddling yesterday, so we're starting to get rolling here, but we're still seeing ice and debris down some of our smaller stuff that comes from our higher elevations.
Very cool. Very cool. And so, Robin, where are you at this point in time, and what paddling have you been doing so far in this odd time of life?
Yeah, so I'm in Calgary, Alberta, and parks are closed to vehicle traffic right now, which pretty much means they're closed to everyone in Calgary as well. So I've been getting out paddling a little closer to home, doing different sections of the Bow and some flat water as it starts to open up too.
Very cool. And I understand you and Rita are out doing some good deeds and doing some garbage cleanup down at Harvey Passage the other day.
Yeah, we did one lap around the perimeter, and it could use another lap like in the middle picnic area if anyone wants to go.
Very cool. Thank you for doing that. That's amazing. And our resident interior decorator over here, Rita. So for those of you who don't read, there's people here who may or may not know you, Rita. So what's your jam, dude?
Well, I'm Rita Sups, and I just want to say that I'm really stoked to be talking with all of you guys today. I've been paddling with Robin and getting out on the Go stretch. Also dusted off my old bike so that we could do our social distancing shuttles. And I've been really stoked to say that I've gotten out on the 10th Street Wave the last couple days, and that's really been tickling my fancy. So I'm really grateful for moving to Cochrane at the moment.
Very cool. Yeah, you've moved to the Rockies, from the Slocan to the Rockies. So, yeah, you're probably noticing a slight temperature differential in the water and the air at the moment, but it will pay off in the long run.
Oh, yeah, I think it's going to be a good season for sure.
Very good. And so you had some, just for the Calgary paddlers amongst us, you just had some information regarding the 10th. Actually, we might get all of you to weigh in on this, but Rita, what's sort of the city's line right now as far as paddling on the Bow River and not in the park areas?
Yeah, so from all the posts that I've been seeing is essentially as long as you're complying with the social distancing, right, staying close to home, which for those of you that live directly in Calgary, right, paddling in Calgary is close to home. So as long as you're staying safe, so making sure that those lakes are free of ice, staying off of any ice that's still out there, making sure the river bank edges are clear, know before you go, and pack a bike, bring a shuttle. But they did publicly say that they're not going to be ticketing as long as you're showing that you're maintaining social distancing to your best.
Okay, awesome. Is there anything different up in BC in your neck of the woods, Kim?
Most of our municipal parks are still open. We do have some of the provincial parks that people are staying out of. For the most part, yeah, we're not starting to see too many people on the water yet with that kind of stuff, just because the waters are still so cold and kind of high at this point. But I have a feeling we're gonna get some guidelines and stuff from the city, they're up all around on all the like little trails and stuff by the rivers, saying like the social distancing and just making sure that we're keeping ourselves far apart. So
cool. Yeah, so it seems to be the common thread. All right, so the three of you know each other. Robin will go. Robin's the newest to this like whole River SUP tribe. So I'll start with you, Robin. How did you meet Rita, and how do you fit into this gang of SUP babes?
Rita and I were talking about this when you first asked us the question, and we've officially met. I took one of her instructor courses, my River 1 instructor course last spring, but we connected on Instagram well before that, and always had this like hit or miss, like, oh, let's go paddling together. Oh wait, you're in Nelson, I'm in Calgary, never mind. And then Kim, I met at CanFest last year.
Ah, right. Okay. So, Rita, you've been to CanFest, right?
Oh, yeah.
Kim, have you been to CanFest as well?
Oh, yeah. That's by sheer force of the 8-hour drive to get there. That definitely.
Okay, perfect. So, this is. I think this is something that everyone in the Calgary region better get used to. Is I think there's going to be a rather aggressive influx of river stand-up paddleboarders coming to CanFest in the coming years, because it seems like the girls are pretty ready to represent as far as that goes. So, those of you who haven't been to CanFest, Rita, give us your I've been involved with CanFest for 15 years, so I'm kind of biased. So, give us your Cole's Notes rundown of what CanFest looks like. As a river stand-up.
Oh, as a river stand-up paddleboarder. Well, essentially, it's always been super welcoming as a river stand-up paddleboarder. The first couple years that I would go, there would always be intro to river SUP clinics, advanced river SUP clinics. When I started coming and participating as an instructor, we started throwing some intro to river SUP surfing clinics in there. But essentially, you're showing up, you're getting welcomed by a whitewater community. The kayakers are always so welcoming and curious to see, like, what are you guys doing? Oh, are you going to go down the race course? I think Kim got called out as being a dude that was trying to clean in the line in the race course last year. And she's like, dude, I'm a chick, man. Like, it was me. But you're coming there and everybody's welcoming. You're going to find the loudest group all packed together, which is, where you're going to find Kim, myself, Robin, Shasta from Streamworks and Golden. There's a whole pack of us, and we kind of flock together, and we're always having fun. The kayakers are always curious. And last year, there was just this big push for us stand-up paddleboarders to engage in the festival itself a bit more. So Kim and I took it upon ourselves to jump into that downriver race, and we raced just after the kayakers for the downriver, and that's something that I know the committee's really committed to getting put in now all the time. And we also held one of the first SUP crosses there last year that Robin and Kim both participated in and crushed. So that's also something that we want to get that sport going and have more of a festival feel there and have events for all sports.
Very cool. I'm just checking in with Kim. Kim, can you hear Rita and Robin, or just me?
I can only hear you at this point in time, but I can definitely see the ladies. They're animated.
Okay. What I might do, just as a tangent, is I might just log you out and just log back in, because that usually fixes everything.
Okay, yes.
All right. Sound like a plan? We'll just do a reset. We'll carry on without you, but we'll see you soon. We're going to miss you.
Bye, Kim.
Bye, Kim.
All right. So, Robin, for you, being newer to the whole River SUP thing, how was CanFest as a newer River SUP paddler?
It was great. Like Rita said, it was super welcoming vibe. I think everyone was pretty stoked about River SUP and us being there. And
I heard the S word.
I think the kayakers were super welcoming to have us there, and also kind of curious about what we were doing. Like they said with the downriver race, they had some maybe weird looks, but also people like cheering them on at the same time. And like maybe what I would like to see more of is, because it's a weekend of learning, people who have been coming for years and years doing the kayaking stuff, maybe branch out and come join us in the SUP group next year.
Absolutely. And it's pretty inclusive too, I think, because it's hard to be uninclusive when some of the craft include inflatable crocodiles and unicorns and things like that, right? So it's good. And so I'll put this out to the group. Whoever speaks the loudest wins. It's like we're in Zoom. We're in the Zoom meeting like world these days, and it's basically whoever barks the loudest wins. But for you guys, what is it that's so appealing about river stand-up paddleboarding? And feel free to sort of just banter amongst one another here, but what appeals to you the most about river stand-up paddling versus, say, canoeing or kayaking or something like that?
Freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom.
Movement.
Well,
Adventure.
What was that one?
It's just like the movement and the self rescue is a big one too, kind of thing. Like,
yeah, I mean, like freedom of gear, like just being free to go explore, free to fall in and swim and embrace the river, but also like never. For me, the reason I shifted was because I did get trapped and pinned in a weird way. So the SUP has allowed me freedom from that fear.
All right, cool. And so, Robin, have you whitewater kayaked before, Robin, or did you just like go straight up? SUP?
Yeah. No, I started out flatwater paddling, and then for me in Calgary, a big part of branching out to the river was accessibility, because as you know, there's not a lot of flatwater here that we can actually paddle on. Like the Glenmore Reservoir doesn't allow stand-up. There's all these little private lakes in the city that are only accessible to those community members. And I was just getting tired of driving an hour to paddle the same lakes over and over again. So yeah, we have this great resource right in town, the Bow River. So I just wanted to get out on that more.
Yeah, it's the way to do it here, right? Like if you're in Calgary, you're listening to this, the Bow River is by far your best resource. We're not able to use the Glenmore Reservoir because it's our drinking water supply. Unless you're fortunate enough to live in a lake community, the river is really the most accessible bit. I'm going to circle back to that. Andrew's checked in from Australia. Hi, Andrew. And he said, CanFest sounds like a cool event. So CanFest is a very cool event, a very, very cool event. One which I've been fortunate to partake in for many, many years now. And I could tell you some stories. That might be another episode altogether. But it's usually the second weekend in August. We have a committee meeting this coming week to see what the plan is for this year. So it's not looking likely that we're going to be able to run it this year, because I know, Andrew, you were considering being out here, I believe, at that time of the year. So this year might not be the year for CanFest, but it's a riot. It's definitely worth coming out for. So circling back around, see, I was the first one to go on a tangent. Yes, I won. So I didn't get Werner, though. I didn't get Werner. So, Robin, I'll start with you here. I'd like the three of you to speak to, the accessibility of river stand-up paddleboarding, and I think the lack of barrier to entry, right? With kayaking, there's that sort of claustrophobic, plastic coffin kind of feel to it. You don't have that with river stuff. So, maybe talk about your own experiences or any insight that you have into that. We'll start with you, Robin.
Sure. So I think that's a big reason why I chose SUP over kayaking in the first place anyways. Like, I have no desire to swim in a kayak or like be upside down in a boat or anything like that. And if you are to fall off your board, you're just swimming. Like, you can recover from that unless, there's a progression where you can get into some pretty serious water, but I'm not there yet. So for me, it's a lot more beginner friendly. And, there's nice mellow stuff in town that we can access. And then there's some stuff close to home, like the Can and even Harvey Passage right in Calgary, where you can start to push your limits a little bit and progress in the sport.
Very cool. And so Rita and Kim, you've both done, and Robin's getting into more instruction here on the river. You guys have both done a lot of river instruction. What would you say to people, if they're a bit apprehensive? They've done some lake stand-up paddleboarding and they're like, oh, that seems kind of cool, but it's a bit scary. How would you approach that?
Come take one of my intro courses with aquabatics. The best way to, learn about something that you're uncomfortable with is to take a course and paddle with someone that knows and has maybe seen a lot of stuff go wrong, right? So I'm more than happy to get you out on the water and give you the insight of how you can stay safe and access rivers like the Bow running right through Calgary.
And how do you go about it up in PG, Kim? Is there education programs up there? Is it largely through the club that you're involved with, or how does it work in your neck of the woods to get involved?
So we've done a little bit of work through the club, and then there's a gentleman in town that's been teaching basically all levels of like kayaking, canoeing for a lot of years, and he does a little bit of flat water stuff. And then I'm starting into the formal river instruction itself, and like the biggest thing is getting connected to the community, to the instructors. If you're nervous, get into a course, because once you have the knowledge, it just goes so much further. One course can lead you to like so many days and weeks of just enjoyment and satisfaction and confidence. And it's easy enough to see someone like paddle down the river, or you see them on their knees or sitting on their board kind of thing, and it's like, to understand the dynamic that's there and be able to actually play in it comes with those courses, and it just creates a different level of being in the water and being on the river.
Yeah, and it's interesting, as I've been a kayak instructor for longer than I'd care to admit, and it's one of the things with River SUP that I think is really quite organic is that you can practice and improve in quite a not risky environment. Because for me, I grew up surfing competitively. I've whitewater kayaked for much of my adult life. I can go out on a stand-up paddleboard in class 1 or easy class 2 and just like hack my way around, and could learn so much more in that environment, right? And really the risk is so minimal, right? With that basic instruction and understanding the limitations of the gear and that kind of thing, you can have a ton of fun and really not expose yourself to a ton of risk. So I think people who are looking at making that bridging from flat water to moving water, I think it's like the girl said, is get into a course and give it a try. So all right, let's talk about, so we talked to Mike last week from Badfish, who's a total bro. I love him. He's a bro. Like, he's at Colorado. Like, all the paddlers in Colorado, they're like bros. They're awesome. I live there and I love that environment. Talk about, and I'm gonna back right out of this conversation. This is think about how, this is your chance to talk about like females in sport and like being role models for young girls getting into paddle sports or whatever it is. So this is a bit of a free form conversation rather than a chat, but you're definitely 3 strong women. I'm sure you all have an opinion and some thoughts on this. So I'm just going to step back and leave this to you guys. The floor is yours. Go.
All right. Who wants to start?
Of course, we're all really polite, and none of us.
Yeah. You're Canadian women.
Yeah.
Canadian women.
Well, I guess for me, the biggest, like when I started whitewater stand-up paddleboarding, I was kind of the only girl paddling with a group of kayakers on the Slocan River. And I randomly saw a post about a clinic that Brittany Parker was leading on the Kananaskis. And I was like, I need to get there, and I need to get to that clinic, and I need to participate. And I did. And it was in that moment that I realized that there was a whole world of whitewater SUP in Colorado and around the world that I didn't even know existed. And look at me, that's 5 years later, and I'm full addict. I'm Rita Sups, and I have a whitewater stand-up paddleboarding problem.
I wouldn't call it a problem.
No. And so the part of the inspiration for that came from meeting Brittany, presumably for the first time, right? And so Kim and Robin, like, how is it within your respective communities? Because community is such a big part of all of this. Like, is it female dominated? Is it male dominated? Like, how does that all work? Like, this is all a little bit ambiguous, but I'm just interested to hear your kind of thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think in Calgary, it seems pretty female dominated to me. I know there's definitely guys doing it too, not to say there's not, but all the courses I taught last year, they're predominantly women. And I don't know if it's because people see stand-up paddling as more of a girly thing to do. Like it's a floaty that you take to the beach or something like that, but you can actually progress so far from that. And a lot of girls have seemed to caught on to that here, and it's pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, and I think part of it is you guys too, right? Is it's being, a lot of it's being, you know, there's like Adlai from Kootenay stand-up paddleboard. He's doing some amazing things with his weekly paddle sessions, and we're going to be trying to work further with that. But then there's, you guys are sort of becoming the face of it a little bit, and I think that helps. And that leads me to another question. But Kim, what's your take on that?
So I've been paddling. We've had a couple of days where it's like me and like a few kayaking girls, but it's like very, very far in between. Like yesterday I was out and it was me and the guys, and up here in the north there are two other gentlemen that are quite good on SUPs. Like it's actually, one of them is like one of my mentors, and it's just, you know, like to inspire the women to come into it. It's like you don't have to have the brute strength, or like you don't have to be like, doesn't have to be the bros. It's like women are as strong, and actually our techniques are usually a little bit cleaner than the boys when it comes to the paddle. So it's just something where getting women into the sport and like getting kind of people inspired and stoked, and like it's like we're strong, we're capable. And my employment has always been just from working with guys. So I grew up with guys, worked with guys, and now I'm just paddling with the boys. Yeah.
Have we lost you, Rita?
Yeah, I think maybe we need to cut her out.
We can't. Where'd Rita go?
Turn it off and turn it on again.
Rita, we're going to kick you out. Bye, Rita. Rita's out. She just got proper word at that time. So I think one of the things over the years that I've always sort of tried to learn a little bit more about, and I sort of have my own thoughts on this, is as females, like for the females out there looking to learn how to get into river stand-up paddleboarding, there are obviously some differences in how the communication and the learning styles kind of go. Can you speak to that at all, as far as when you're teaching, if you're teaching women versus teaching men, or vice versa being taught, what are there tangible differences that either male instructors can take on board, or is there stuff that as a female, like, I'm not probably wording this the right way, but
trying to defend somebody.
Yeah, I'm trying really hard. Yeah. So, yeah, if I say it in Australian for Andrew, if I say it in Australian, it's like, so how do girls like to be taught, and how do girls like to teach? There you go. That's it. I'm going to leave it at that.
I don't know that there needs to be a huge difference between male and female teaching. Like, I've had a lot of great instructors that have been men as well, like some from aquabatics. Like my first river lesson was with Alan in 2016, maybe. And then Neil Gilson in Canmore has been another one of my trainers too, and they've been great as well. I think it just comes down to personal style of the teachers and the learners too. Like some people learn best by watching first, and some people learn by doing or by positive reinforcement and things like that. So I think as an instructor, it's getting a chance to really connect with the people in your group and figure out what's going to work for them. Like if they're struggling with their eddy turns or something like that, like how are you going to help them fix it in a way that connects with them?
Nice. Any additions, Kim?
I think I was to say Robin just nailed it right out of the ballpark. Like I think when I'm dealing with guys, I might poke a little more fun and like maybe joke a little bit heavier type thing, and with women I won't I won't poke as much fun. I'll have a little bit more encouragement, and I don't know, I think that's just from my, like, because I work in industry, so I work with a lot of guys, and I see that personality. That's kind of sometimes how they talk to each other, so I feel that that comes forward sometimes. But it's just the fact of like not having, like, figuring out how people learn is the priority.
Cool. You on board with that, Rita, now that you can hear us again?
Totally. I agree with all those things.
Perfect.
I was trying to figure out how to comment, and I was like, I can't figure this out.
Because the main thing for me in teaching classes with primarily females is I find I use less competition. Like I use like competition, and I know that's obviously a generalization, but with guys, I'll be like, you see what that dude did there? He did it way better than you. You probably should get out there and do it again. Where I try and be a little bit more, tend to be more supportive. However, if I was teaching the three of you, I think it would be pretty much like game on, because I think I think I'd have my hands full, well and truly. So I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to my daughters being inspired by the likes of you, because I think they'll have, you know, thick skin and be very, very, very strong young ladies. I dig it. It's one of my favorite things about being in the paddle sports community. So on the count of three, I'm going to give you three options. Okay, three options, and it's river running, surfing, or flat water. And surfing can be ocean or river surfing. I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, and you got to say your favorite. Okay, you can't say all of the above. 1, 2, 3, go.
River running.
Running.
3 for 3, all river running. Okay, so speak to why is river running would be your thing of choice. We'll start with Rita.
Endless progression. So the ability to always find something new without making that progression just the class of the river. So, you know, maybe you're paddling down a class 1 to 2 river, and the first time you didn't catch a single eddy. Then by the end of it, you're catching midstream eddies. Maybe there is a midstream wave that you can try and catch on the fly. So that ability to make a river that we could say is maybe simpler or less complex, a little safer, more challenging, so that you can still get out and progress without maybe increasing your risk so much.
I like how you managed to include surfing in river running. You just had to include it, didn't you? Like, you can surf a wave while you're river running. So I'm just making sure that you know that I really like surfing as well, because I do. Robin, you said river running as well. What's your take? Why is river running the go-to?
I think it keeps your mind a little sharper than flat water. Like, there's some decision making along the way, and you know, it's fun to go fast too.
Very cool. And Kim, for you, Kim, why that over the other two?
Well, you had me in a tight spot when you threw the ocean surfing in there.
Right,
so
yeah.
I was definitely, but I think I would have said ocean if I was closer to the ocean. But definitely it's the accessibility. And river running, there's something about the reading the water and understanding where it's supposed to be. You get into I feel like it's kind of, I don't want to compare it to mountain biking because you don't even do that, but I'm not a biker. But anyways, it's it's something where you're in that flow. Like, when you're biking, you're looking down the trail, you're seeing what's coming, you're seeing the next hump, you're seeing the next obstacle, the next turn, you're understanding how you're supposed to interact with the trail. When you're river running, you're interacting with the river. You're reading where the current's going, where are the eddies, where's the best line, do I want to boof that hole, do I want to charge that wave, do I want to turn this thing around and catch that one on the fly. You're in that zone where nothing else exists except for you and the interaction with the water, and it's a really beautiful thing, and it's always exciting. It's always fun, and this smile.
Yeah, you can tell, right? Yeah. No one said stoked in a while, so if you're playing along, have a drink, all right?
Yeah.
These three have a lot of the S word. They have a lot of the S word. Yeah. The other thing, even from a kayaking standpoint with river running, I think, is that it becomes a bit of a team event as well, to some degree. We were talking earlier, we were going to have a 10-minute mic check, and we ended up chatting for an hour before this started. And Kimberly was talking about a wreck she had once, and we sort of got chatting about, you know, team running river safety, and you're sort of looking at this very three-dimensional picture. And I think for me personally, if you ask me the same question about kayaking, you know, do you river running or freestyle? I think that river running speaks to me a little bit more because of that part of it as well. I really enjoy that process of running the river safely and so on and so forth. So, so the next thing, all right, again, a bit of a free form conversation for the three of you. Actually, one other question. Can you now that you all paddle whitewater with a lot of regularity, can you still go out on flat water on a stand-up paddleboard and enjoy it? And be honest.
Rita, do you want to start?
Rita, you can start. Rita, you go first.
Well, I really like when I go out on the flat water and I get to do silly things like create competitions with my friends or practice my pivot turns, which is gonna translate to making my river stronger, or practice my bracing. I'll be honest with you, I'm not one to go for a super long distant, just chill paddle on the lake. But if you tell me that it'll make me go faster when I'm racing, I will be the first one out there practicing.
All right. Who's next? Robin, you go next.
Yeah, I still enjoy flat water, and a big part of the paddling I do every summer is racing too, and a lot of that is on flat water as well. And there's a big community around it. So I've got my river community, I've got my racing community, and I enjoy them both equally. And yeah, I think flat water can be a great place to train and dial in your strokes and your pivot turns and things like that, where you might be a little more willing to try things rather than with current. And yeah, like we were out there this morning just for like a little stretch and chat, and it's good to just kind of shake things out every once in a while.
Very cool. Kim,
there was a little current.
A little bit, yeah.
Kim, can you what's your take on flat water?
Sometimes I struggle to go to flat water. Just because I started paddling on the rivers in order to surf on the rivers, so I kind of always been drawn just to the moving water, and coming from the ocean experience, I'm used to the movement. I'm used to like the engaging, like the water constantly interacting with me. And when I go to the lake, it's sometimes it's a little harder, but I do actually really enjoy going to the lake and like putting myself through a set of drills as to like working on different strength points with different types of paddle strokes, and like practicing my basically like fall off the board, get back on as fast as you can, like do a couple hard strokes, go into a brace, recover from the brace, fall off the board, get back on, and just like it's a really good training ground. And there are a couple little lakes around here when they get a really good wind through them. It makes so with a long enough board, you can feel the catch of the waves, and it still makes it really enjoyable. So I will take river over flat, but flat is definitely not like out of the picture for sure. So
very cool. Yeah, I think like for me personally, one of the reasons we sort of have gone down the river SUP path with the store and our lessons and everything is that we as a specialty shop, we have to be kind of authentic to ourselves. And in all honesty, you couldn't pay me to go flat water stand up paddleboard. Like you couldn't pay me. Like I did it with my kids when they were really little. I put the little bumbo seat on the front, and my like 6-month-old would sit on there and fall asleep, and I felt like a cool dad. But really, that was it. It stopped after that. And so I think for a lot of people, especially whitewater paddlers, I think that that's where the appeal of the river SUP kind of comes in, because it is exciting. I see these people doing, and I don't know, maybe you guys are wired this way, but I see people doing these like 150-kilometer SUP overnight multi-day trips, and I'm just like, oh, that is a lot of paddling. There's a lot of hard work. So Norm Hand, my hat goes up to you, mate. Yeah. Like you're a total stud. And yeah, even the flat water racing that Robin was talking about, man, that's what some of the races. How long are they, Robin? There's some quite long races now, isn't there?
There's some really like almost borderline like ultra races. There's one in Revelstoke that's a 3-day race doing the length of Lake Revelstoke, I think, or maybe there's a couple portages as well, but it's over 100 kilometers in 3 days. And yeah, there's similar ones out in BC. I think the biggest one is Yukon River Quest, which is like, what is it, Rita? Like 700 kilometers?
Oh, I don't know. That's too flat for me to even like look at.
And they do it in a couple days, like 3 days, I think.
But
it's pretty crazy.
Wasn't it Lena who did the first descent of that one?
Maybe.
I think it was like six years ago or something like that. She's out of the Okanagan, the Vernon area. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if I remember right, she was breastfeeding at the time, so she was pumping and paddling.
Yeah, she's a beast. Yeah. The longest one that I've done is 17K, I think, and that was the Kalamaka Classic
Okay.
I like
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
That's like probably about as the max that I can handle.
Yeah.
So I can actually bring some value to this conversation, which is rare when it comes to stand-up paddleboarding. So there's the Yukon River Quest, and then there's the Yukon 1000 as well.
Oh, yeah.
So we're actually going to interview John, who's the organizer of the Yukon 1000. So that's 1,000-mile kayak, canoe, and SUP race, and it goes from Whitehorse to the Dalton Highway Bridge in Alaska. So I did it I did it a number of years ago in a tandem kayak with a buddy of mine. So we're actually going to be talking to John about that. And even the 1000 has been done on a stand-up paddleboard now.
Nice.
So yeah, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, the first time a team. So it's 2 people. It might have been Lena. I don't know. It was a girl and a guy that did it together, and they did it in 11 days or something like that. It's crazy. It's like we paddled 18 hours a day on that. And the stand-up, and we're sitting down the whole time. But honestly, it's cool as hell. It's not flat water. It moves pretty quick. Like it moves pretty quick, except for Lake Labarge, which is 50 kilometers of flat water. So you'd be all over, Rita. That'd be all you, for sure. So back to River SUP, even though that is River SUP. So if you're, for all of you, what's your go-to river, like your all-round river SUP board at the moment? Go, Rita.
River Shred.
River Shred.
River Shred. River Shred.
Wow, some pretty good badfish representation here for sure.
Yeah.
And so that's your all-round boards. Talk to me about actual river surfing. Do the 3 of you partake in river surfing? So without the blade. Hands up if you do. If you river surf without a paddle.
I'm working on it.
Okay. And so
I've tried a couple times. Like I find like coming out of the ocean and just the bulk of the actual PFD, I find has really changed how my pop-up is, and I find that to be like it's just different, and it creates like a bit of it's just created a little bit of a struggle, and I find trying to get to my feet, I haven't quite figured that out. So I've dabbled, but I've not fully taken it on yet.
Okay.
You got to try this board, Kim.
Which one is that?
It's the Wavo. So it's the biggest of the inflatable river surfers. So it'd be the most buoyant for a bigger paddler and more surface area to get your feet under you.
Okay, very cool. Robin, have you tried river surfing at all?
No, I haven't. I've played on little like baby waves, like Baby Wave on the can, and another one that we've named Baby Sur, but that's about the extent of river surfing I've done.
Okay. Very cool. It's quite big here in Calgary. It is, with the mountain wave and everything. It's a pretty strong community for sure. So we have where are we? We have a question from Laurie Volmerhouse, who's a whitewater paddler here in Calgary. So what's the best board for crossing from small wave ocean surfing and river surfing and some river running?
I would say I'm a little biased here when it comes to the Badfish fleet, but if you're looking for something that's going to sort of dabble in all aspects, if you're a smaller person, I would go to the Surf Traveler. If you're sort of an average size person, and what I'm going to use as my all-around board is the Badfish Monarch, because it does well enough in everything. So I feel that it's stiff enough to go surf those little ankle biter waves in the ocean, something medium size. It's going to surf.
Uh-oh.
Oh no.
We lost Rita.
And it's also gonna catch eddies and let you safely navigate the river and have some fun, especially on places like the Bow.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on boards, Robin or Kim, as far as that all round board to transition from small ocean surfing?
Go ahead, Kim.
I've definitely before I started working with Badfish, I've paddled a lot of different boards and a lot of different shapes and sizes, from plastic boards to inflatable to ones that are epoxy. Been in the ocean a bit with different boards, and I've paddled the Monarch, and I've raced with the Monarch, and I've been on some flat water with the Monarch, and I honestly I've been on a few different inflatable boards, and I actually legitimately have the Monarch is actually a really good all around board. And I was surprised that I was able to do as well as I did last year in a race on it. So I I have to agree with Rita on the Monarch.
I didn't pay her.
No,
I didn't pay her to say that.
Like I've used stuff from Surf Tech. I've paddled stuff from Karan. I've paddled a few different Ocean Starboards. I've tried a whole bunch of different boards. And if you're looking at trying to surf ocean and go surfing into the river, there actually is a little bit of a difference there, and you have to look at there is differences in the boards that actually compare. Like what I would surf in the ocean, I wouldn't maybe be really excited at all to surf in the river just because of the different dynamic. And like if you want that board that would actually surf well in the ocean is going to do well on potentially something that's the size of, like, I want to say Skookumchuck here in BC, like a massive, huge tidal wave, because that would compare a little more to the ocean wise. So it's hard to, I would be going for more of it, like, and all around, like definitely like the Monarch for transition wise, but I wouldn't expect too much out of the river surfing end of it without leaning towards more of a river board itself.
Yeah, very much so. Robin, any further insight into that?
Well, I don't want to inflate her ego too much, but I was with Rita and say the Monarch, and I got to test the Monarch and the Surf Traveler last week on the bow with her, and I started on the Monarch, and I was actually really impressed with it. I thought I would like the Surf Traveler a lot more, and I do like it, but and I told her this at the time, maybe it's because I caught a wave on the fly on the Monarch that I was especially impressed with it. But
yeah. It's all situational.
Yeah.
You just got to know where to take them when they're doing the demos, right?
Yeah. Just everyone in full transparency, Rita is a sales rep for Badfish, right? We'll be talking to we're going to talk to Adlai from Kootenay in a couple of weeks, so he'll have his forum to talk about his boards then. So it's all fair game. It's all fair game. So very cool. And Laurie, just so you know, and this is not being a salesy dork, but you have like $1,000 like gift card you bought. The Monarch's 15% off right now. So if you are looking at getting a new board, then you could save some cash on it. So Nikki Reckman, who is a rep for Kokatat and Werner, who Rita is quite proudly sporting the Kokatat hat. So I like this question, Nikki. I like this, Nikki. I'm assuming there's some healthy, friendly competition between the three of you in a race. Who's faster? Nikki, I love you. Amazing.
Yeah, Nikki.
Last year, we all paddled at the Bow Valley Log Jam, and those two were in the shorter board category. I was in the longboard category, but we saw the times at the end. And Rita, do you remember what they were?
Robin, are you taking into account the smaller number of buoys you had to make when you took those times?
So we're doing that.
So Robin's faster in a straight line is what we've established here.
On a 14-foot board. She got 3 feet on me.
It was a 12-6.
Okay, 12-6.
Kim's just staying out of this. She's like staying out. I like it. See, I told you if I was teaching your group, I would definitely use competition as a motivator, 100%.
We've been working on some ideas. Actually, Robin and I were talking about it this morning of ways that maybe we could do like a virtual time trial competition among the three of us over this time of separation.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that.
The thing is that, like, depending on flows, though, we probably would have to actually go to flat water to do the time trial so that flow isn't an influence.
Yeah.
And then once we can all come to the can, then it's like all fair game. We all have the same boards, and we just full send until we've done everything we possibly could to know who's the fastest.
I just know when Rita puts on those unicorn socks, I'm in trouble. So I gotta watch out for the rainbow unicorn socks.
Yeah.
I locked them up in my safe.
So everyone who's competing in Colorado, if you want to beat Rita next year, you just have to find her safe, crack it, steal the unicorn socks, and she doesn't stand a chance. You're good to go. So we got another question from Karen Walker here, another whitewater paddler from Calgary. So thanks for doing it. She has a red 10.6 ride, so it's a bit of a crossover board. So she's what are some of the things that she might find challenging transitioning into whitewater, and maybe some ways to kind of get around that, you know, and make sure it's a really positive experience, because we can't all go out and buy new boards all the time.
Yeah, totally. I think that board's a great board for learning how to get into the river, right? Like, we've all talked about learning in that class 1 environment and learning those foundational skills. So really, when I look at getting anybody onto the river, if I can get them on an inflatable board, that's a bonus, because it's going to be a little bit more forgiving in relation to just how much pressure is being put on the board, as well for damage repairs and such around the river. So any type of inflatable is great, and a flatter board is going to do great to progress you into that class 1, 2 world. If you do want to start seeing that performance moving into that class 3 realm, that's when you're going to want to start looking at more of a river specific board. But up until that class 1, 2, any inflatable is good to go.
Very cool. Any insights, Robin or Kim, above and beyond that?
Yeah, I think my boards that I started with on flat water and then progressed into the river from there, and they worked great. Like Rita said, the inflatables are awesome on the river. They're not as susceptible to the little dings and scrapes that you might get with a hardboard. And until you're ready for that progression into more complicated water, I guess, that would work just fine.
Cool.
Yeah,
Kim?
It's definitely I like, my first board is a flat water and was a hard board, but that was a flat water board for me. And then my second board was a 60-pound piece of plastic built by Jackson.
Jackson. It was
yeah. So I went through a few plastic boards before, and I tried a few inflatables along the way, and then I got on. Yeah, it's kind of helped me develop my skills along the way, and then I actually ended up on the river shred, and I was like, well, I like, this is lighter. This takes the beating if I get stuck somewhere, and like, I'm not worried. It doesn't weigh as much. So definitely in on Rita with the inflatable.
Yeah. For
that, and like, yeah, you can kind of start anywhere, but there are boards that will give you a little more of a advantage here and there, and just watch out for those fiberglass epoxy boards. Like, if anybody is going to do that, I definitely want to give a heads up to that like, you really want to watch if you're going to ding your board, if it is built, if not of something that's going to take what sometimes the river can hand to it.
Yeah, and I would say also you want to be mindful of the fins too. Like, if your board has fixed fins, maybe it's not the best choice. You want a removable fin that you could maybe put a flexible fin in when you're going to use it on the river.
Yeah,
we learned that the hard way when we got into SUP. Like, we just had all these flat water, like soft top foamy SUPs, and people would come and use them on the river. And in the first week, I think we had 4 fin boxes ripped out, like just straight out of the board. You're like, well, here you go, bring it back, drive it like it's a rental. So yeah, definitely the soft fin thing is huge for sure. So very cool. So we got a few more questions to chuck this way. So Laurie Davis, hi Laurie. Paddles.
Hey, Laurie.
About paddles and performance. So I think the direction to go with this, perhaps, and Laurie, please weigh in with any questions you have, is, you know, what are we looking for? What are you all personally looking for specifically in a paddle for the river, rather than something you would use for flat water? Because, you know, obviously you're not going to go for the lightest weight one. So Kim, she looks keen. Fire it up, man.
Well, kind of stoked.
She's stoked.
Oh,
she's stoked.
There goes my paddle, by the way. So definitely, I really want to put it out there that I have seen multiple aluminum shafts break in the river. I've seen, and it's with some bigger guys putting like their full weight on the, I'm going to say it cheaper, you know, 100, 150 buck paddles, and they're out there in the river, plastic blades. I've seen plastic blades snap. And it's just something where, like, if you're lily dipping and you're looking at that class 1 and you're just getting started and you're not putting that brute force onto your paddles yet, it's not an overly concern, but it's one of those things where your paddle is, to me, is your lifeline. And if you're worried about breaking it or it's sinking because it's not made of the right material and it's not going to float for you, it's definitely, it can become a hazard too as well. So it's something that to consider. Like, I've always paddled with Werner paddle. I've never paddled with any other paddle on the river, and that's something that like, not that I'm even like affiliated with Werner, but I just know that the quality that comes from them once you start getting into their, not like, it doesn't have to be their complete upper end paddle, but like once you start getting into their quality paddles, you're not going to lose out. So it's, I don't know, I'd love to hear what the other girls have to say, but that's just my experience with the paddles on the river.
Yeah, you guys froze a couple times there, but I've always personally gone with Werner paddles on the river because I started with them with kayaking, and I early on in my paddling career had a product knowledge with them and learned a bit more about how the shaft was extended into the blade to add for more stiffness at that joint piece. And I think that they are really doing a good job of keeping those shapes and making a really strong paddle. I think.
Oh. She does this sometimes when we video chat.
Yeah.
So what she, there we go. She's back.
You're doing the freeze dance.
Me?
Sometimes, yeah.
Oh, oops.
It's okay.
Yeah, we got it. It was good. The paddles are tough, and they're doing a really good job of building river SUP like specific paddles, right?
Totally. And then I was just going to quickly touch, and Robin, you might have more input on Lori. She asked here if it's more racing versus out there to play in the river. And my response to that is, if I'm going to be going racing, I personally like to choose something with a smaller blade, like the Ripstick. But if I'm just going out to play, I'll just stick with the Legend that's specifically built for whitewater, and that's a personal preference.
Yeah, and I guess with blade size, you want to take into consideration your cadence as well. Like if you're racing, a smaller blade is great. It's going to be a lot easier on your shoulders, but you're going to have to keep up a pretty consistent high cadence to keep up with someone with a bigger blade. So personally, in flat water racing, I choose a smaller blade because it's easier on my shoulders. But on the river, like Rita was saying, I may be used to a bigger blade that's going to be more effective in bracing, and where you're not doing as many strokes, it's more so for steering than for accelerating, then a bigger blade is okay.
Yeah. And really what it boils down to a couple of things, Laurie, I think, is its material. So you want fiberglass or carbon, basically. If you ever see a picture of someone surfing on a stand-up paddleboard, you'll often see like a 10 or 15 degree bend in the shaft of the paddle. As soon as you need strength, you need a little bit of flex in it as well. And then it's deciding on the paddle size. If you're like going out to crush it, a small paddle blade is probably going to be better. But if you're going to surf or whatever, a bigger paddle blade could be better. I think I summed that up all right ish. So
I've heard mixed about like if you're surfing sometimes it's like a medium blade. It's
right.
Like, but if you really want to set the power and you're running and you need to actually perform in the rapids, that's when like having that full big face to be able to actually basically grab the water and hang on. It's like
cool.
It's definitely, that's where the big blade really comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And really quickly, we're going to Alan put a question in here, but before we get off the paddles topic, do you carry breakdowns on whitewater runs? Do you carry a breakdown with you or not?
It depends on, there's a lot of variables for me on that. Like if it's just the local quick and dirty, that it's not going to be too big a deal if I have to lay on my belly and swim out, or if I'm pretty familiar that I'm not going to lose it. Yeah, nope, I don't. But on a bigger day, like if we were going to go paddle the Kicking Horse or something that's going to be maybe a more full day run, if there's challenging rapids along the way, it really never hurts to have a breakdown paddle, because I have been in situations when rescuing that paddle was a pretty big necessity, and that having a spare with us would have taken that edge off. So a 3-piece breakdown is something that
I was there.
Carry on, Kim.
Do we need to like wind her up every once in a while?
That paddle rescue, and that definitely, yeah. If you're doing a bigger run, and depending on the group dynamic, it really, you really want a 3-piece could be hugely beneficial. Like definitely, but a lot of times I won't take one. Like I don't actually have a breakdown, so like I also understand myself personally as a paddler. if I'm taking other people out in a lesson or something like that, the likelihood of someone dropping a paddle, losing a paddle could be way higher depending on their experience. For me, the only time I've actually let go of my paddle was actually this last season, and it like blew my mind because I know that's my lifeline. So having a 3-piece with you, with depending on the group and the length, like it's I wouldn't put it as a non-option.
Yeah, for sure. So hopefully that helped, Laurie, with the feedback from the girls there. Thank you very much. All right, Alan is in Lethbridge, I think. Used to work for Aquabatics. How many boards is too many boards for a stand-up paddleboarder to own? What's the ideal quiver of boards without going overboard? No pun intended. Okay, so Rita's not allowed to answer this. Rita is not allowed to answer this because she has a lot of boards. Robin, you can go first because you're the one. You look composed. The other two have lost it. So
I don't think there's such thing as too many boards, but for me, I think the ideal number would be 4. And so I would say a flatwater racing board, a touring board, a river board, and then a downriver racing board.
Okay, so we've got 4 for Robin. Kim, how many what's your quiver look like if you have the dream quiver?
This year, I bought a couple more boards this year, and I'll have 12 this year in my own quiver. And that doesn't even include a single, that doesn't actually include my surfboard or a single actual river surfer without a blade. If we're just talking stand-up paddle boards, I'll have 12 this year.
Okay. Okay, so is that because you're a hoarder or is that because you use all of them?
It's interesting because some of them are from some of the ones I've been running for a few years. I have 2 of them that are going to become 1 because they're going to be fixed. But it's something where certain boards have certain personalities and have certain applications and stuff, and it's really hard to I'll never get rid of my first board because I know that thing is probably one of the toughest hard boards I'll ever come across because a lot of them nowadays are easy enough to put holes in. But it's something where it's you try a board and it's just I don't know, maybe I'm a hoarder. I'm stoked on it, and I've got all these boards and I'm gonna have all this equipment and I just want to get more people on the water. So,
it's great.
What can I say?
It's awesome. And Bonnie said you need to build an extra shed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm running out of room.
Yeah, and I'm going to answer for Rita. There's no such thing as too many boards. Am I right?
Yeah. Open the back of the SUP catalog, and there's one for everything. So you just need one of everyone.
Okay, perfect. All right, we've got a couple more questions here. This is good. Another one from Nikki. Her last one was a classic. So let's go with this. Is there a piece of gear that is missing for you as female athletes, particularly in the river SUP category? Rita's gone, and now we're not going to be able to. And now she's not going to be able to hear us.
I'll get it before she does.
What is it?
Okay, this is our moment for our unsolicited, or we didn't pay for this advertisement.
I'm gonna mute you now. I'm muting you. Go for it.
This all funniness aside, this is an antimicrobial pea cloth, and so girls we wear dry suits, we have drop butt seats, right? And so we're frequently going pee on the side of the river, especially because the water's cold. Well, I don't haul a roll of toilet paper down in my dry suit, and I definitely don't want to leave toilet paper bombs all over the beautiful trees and woods on the Kananaskis banks, because that's just gross. So we have this antimicrobial pee cloth available at ritasups.com. And when you pee, so that you don't have to drip dry in your base layers and smell gross when you're hitting on the cute kayak boys at the end of the trip, you can dab with this guy, fold it up, stick it back into your base layer, and you're good to go downstream until you need to pee again.
Perfect. Nikki, thanks for asking, man. Really appreciate that. It's great. Feeling good.
I feel like you knew that was coming.
I love that. My favorite part of that was actually that both you and Kim were like, "Oh, this is the moment. I have it right here." I thought the funniest part of this for me is I thought it was a face mask.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. It's the opposite of that. That's very good to know. That's very, very good to know. All right. Well, thank you, Nikki. You're killing it today on the questions. So we got another. Moving swiftly on. What's the maximum flow at the kicking horse you've done? Just curious what the cutoff is for stand-up paddleboarding.
I've done it only pretty low late in the season. I think it was, I want to say maybe 97. I'd have to go pull up my river log.
Yeah.
Decent.
But, and then I feel like we did it at what flow, maybe, yeah, I'm not sure. I want to say 97 is the one that I remember the most. Andre, is that how I say your name? Your resource for flows and stand-up paddleboarding on the Kicking Horse River would be Shasta McCoy. She owns Streamworks SUP, and that's her local home river. That's who took me down there first time. And so she's someone to reach out. She's gonna have paddled it at all of its different flows, and she'll be able to give you the best data on that. It's not local to me. I hope to paddle it more though.
So what is it? Streamworks? Does she have a website that people can check out?
Yeah, Streamworks SUP.
Okay, so Streamworks SUP. Yeah, so Andre, check that out. Shasta's part of this crew here. She's just not talking because we only had 4 spots. And you had to deal with me being here, unfortunately. So we've just hit the hour mark, and it felt like 10 minutes, which I kind of expected. So we sort of try and keep it to around an hour. But I do have one sort of final closing question for everyone. And so, as whitewater paddlers, we have it. There's a bit of a culture and around swimming, right? When you swim, and so if your spray skirt comes off and you have to get out of your boat, you can't paddle yourself to shore. Then it's a swim, and then good timing, Kim. Then you have to drink a booty beer. If that's part of your kind of tribe's process. So with stand-up paddleboarding, you fall off, obviously. That kind of is a thing. At what point does it become a booty beer? All right. At what point does it become a booty beer? Anyone? Just fire it out there. Go, Kim.
Don't if you lose your paddle, someone else is retrieving your paddle, or if you gotta release your board. I had a moment where my board was through a drop and it got pinned against one of the sidewalls, and I was pulled tight and I had to quick release off of it, and my board hung out there for probably the next 3 to 5 minutes till it was kind of flushed off the wall. And it's one of those things that when my board came floating down, it was like the best thing to see the kayakers I was with, just like everybody was like, I'm getting the board because like she's gonna owe me a beer and she's definitely drinking a beer. So it's one of those things where it's like you lose your gear and you're definitely it's definitely called it's a swim for sure, and you better have that booty and that beer ready to go. At least in my area.
Yeah, for sure. And so if you lose a paddle, that's a booty beer. If you lose a board, that's a booty beer. What if you lose a paddle and a board? Is that a double booty beer?
Oh, yeah.
I don't see why not.
Oh, yeah. Rita's like straight up. Yeah, no way. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no. Well, because, like, I guess for me with SUP, like, kind of like kayaking is with the roll, right? If you spend your time, like, building your foundational skills and, like, during those skills, you practice falling off, you practice self-rescues, those swims should be rare and in between. And, you know, if you're a paddler sending it at that level, by all means, you deserve both those beers.
Very cool.
For the record, I did have my paddle when I had to let go of my board. So.
Really? Wow, that's impressive.
You don't let go of your paddle, man. It's your lifeline. Do not lose that.
It's funny, because you don't. Kayakers often just saying, "Oh, I can hand roll. It's fine if I lose my paddle. It's all good." There's not really an equivalent of a hand roll in stand-up paddleboarding. But I think before we wrap up, that's one thing. Sort of talking about this. You know, Kim was talking there about having a bit of a situation where it was probably quite unpleasant at the time. That's obviously not where this necessarily leads. If you are getting into it and you're just getting into kind of mellow moving water and that sort of thing, it's a bit of a choose your own adventure. That first day on moving water class 1 is going to be super exciting, and you don't ever have to go past that. It's just part of the fun, and you'll decide where you progress to. the other thing that a lot of people come into the shop not knowing, and you guys have all alluded to it, is leashes. So tell me, Robin, from an instructor's perspective, just before we wrap things up, good to close on a safety note, I guess, is what do you tell people about leashes when they're in moving water?
It's a quick release or nothing at all.
Yeah. So yeah, for those of you who don't know what a quick release leash is, check it out online. Just look out quick release SUP leash or something like that, or call, your local paddle sports retailer. It could be Aquabatics up in Smithers. Say good day to Sue and Dagmar up there, or you can call us or anyone in whatever neck of the woods you're in, and they'll be able to inform you. But make sure you are informed, because that's basically, you just can't miss that step, because it can be super, super dangerous. So that's it, ladies. Thank you so much for your time. That was thoroughly enjoyable. That time went by really, really quickly. So, yes, we're all drinking. So I think we let you down on the stoked, everyone. I don't think anyone's really drunk after that. We didn't say stoked enough. So stoked. I was so stoked to see everyone. So thanks very much, ladies. We'll be back at 3:00 next week with, I don't know who I'm talking to yet, but I'll fill you in soon. So thank you, everyone. And thanks, ladies. It was super fun.
Thanks, Simon.
See you guys.
See you guys.
See you again.